If you want to hear about St. Louis, tune in to the Bucket List Show weekly. Hear what Marissa and Luke say. It drops every Wednesday. Got a dope new guest every single week. Buckle up for the ride. Who's it gonna be? Who's on the show today? They rep St. Louis. What to do in the loo on a late night, or maybe what to do on a date night. Yeah, Bucket List has you covered. They know what's going on. What's going on? They'll give you, hey, 18 different things to do, or 19 if you need one more to choose. Yeah, this city is a place we call home. A place we call home, yeah.
What's up, St. Louis? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the STL Bucket List Show. I'm your host, Marissa Farrell.
And I'm your other host, Luke Farrell. And we were recording episode 61 today. That's 61 straight weeks of highlighting the people, places, and events that make St. Louis special. And we couldn't do this show without our friends over at the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. They're the largest public funder of arts and art programs right here in St. Louis. And when you support art, you support St. Louis. So,
right.
And shout out Matt in the back on the ones and twos, here every single week, cutting up a perfect episode for us to put out on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all the places.
And big thank you to our consistent listeners. You guys you're the people we're making this for. So thank you guys for riding along this over a year now, and just keep listening.
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
All right. Today, we've got our special friend with Balkan Treat Box, Loryn Nalic.
Nalic.
And I wrote it down to get it
I know.
right.
You just spelled it out too.
I spelled it out.
We do that every time. So, well, first of all, thank you for coming onto the show with us.
Thanks for having me.
Came straight from work, which we appreciate because we did as well. So,
my brain is jumbled today.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's all good. So we wanted to get into a little bit more about your story. You know, I know you've been in hospitality, I know this, but like we like to kind of dig deep with our guests and find tell us a little bit about your upbringing, kind of the what high school did you go to thing that everybody talks about, if you want to share that. And then just like your family support system, stuff like that. Just kind of tell us a little bit about you.
Okay.
It's a lot, I know.
Okay, I remembered that part. Now I'm going to, what other parts?
So just about your upbringing and life and stuff like that.
Sure. So I was raised in South St. Louis City. I have 4 siblings.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 3 siblings. I am 4.
You're the 4th. There you go.
Are you the youngest?
There's 4 of us,
Okay.
and yes, I am the baby.
Oh.
And my parents, my mom was in the restaurant business my whole life. My dad was a plumber and an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of chefs in the family. So my great-grandparents, grandparents, cousins.
Wow.
So we have a lot of food people.
That's like embedded into you.
Yeah. It's I'm not alone. I'm sure there's the majority of your listeners have like food-centric families where it's like you get together and it's all about the food.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very much like that. I'm Italian and Irish. So that's my background, you know. But I basically, you know, I say this all the time, but it really means a lot to me because it really did like kind of mold who I am, which is I learned to cook at a really young age to get myself out of a lot of trouble. Like I learned very early on that people are happy when they're eating and in better moods when you're taking care of them. And I would do like full on restaurants for my parents because I was terrible in school. I talked too much.
You're the friendly type.
Yeah, just very, I don't know, had bad conduct. I guess that's what they would have called it on our report cards.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the way that I kind of established a relationship with my mother was in a kitchen, my grandmother as well. That was kind of the only place that we really had any sort of, you know, good bond. And I just always felt like I had something to prove. It's like, I can make that. I can make that. You know, watched cooking shows with her and just started making things that I found interesting, or if I saw that she would get excited about something and I knew that like the reports cards were coming out or
you would line it up.
Yeah. Or like I was late for school because I went to the candy store or whatever it was. But I would set up the whole house, like from a front sign to making a menu. And I would have like a waitress outfit. And then I would have like my chef outfit. And then I would wait on them and pour them like
And how old were you? You think like this
Oh,
was like?
I love this.
This was like very young. We're talking probably between third grade, probably second grade.
Wow.
Second grade all the way through when I really started doing that. But before that, yeah, I was always like making something.
Did you have a name for your restaurant?
There were always different names.
Okay.
It just depended on the kind of food that I was making. Yes. But I did have one thing that I always made, which was called the Grand Canyon. And the Grand Canyon was basically like a huge charcuterie board.
I love it. Just the basics, the Italian basics.
But I would make like the way that I would situate everything on the plate. There'd be like this moat like between
the water would come.
Yeah, exactly. So my siblings were not interested in me because I was much younger than they were, and my parents were busy. So anytime I'd want any attention, I'd be like, you guys want a Grand Canyon? So still to this day, when any of that is out in the family, they're like, hey, we made a Grand Canyon.
It's still going to this day.
I love it.
That's special.
So yeah, that's, my childhood and food in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That's so funny. My siblings and I and cousins, we used to play kitchen all the time. Like we would make the menu. Our restaurant was called Sassy's. That's why I asked what your name was. It was
had a
just
name.
Sassy's. And then I remember we like split up like the ownership. Like my cousin and I, we broke up, and like the other one named theirs. It was something. It was just like Sassy's, but it was like
Scandal.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. It was like the same name, but like
the competition.
Yeah.
Do you
and then
remember-
we split the kitchen? I was like, I get Grant, like my brother, and she's like, I'll get Tyson, and we split the kitchen.
Do you remember
Sous
when
chefs.
all the restaurants were closed?
Classies.
Classies.
Sassy.
and
Sassy and classies.
Yep.
That's classic.
Yes. Yep.
Do you remember when all the restaurants were closed and I made like a menu for her because we love going to restaurants, and that's why we live in South City, and we just love going to new restaurants all the time. That's kind of why we started the page to highlight these places, but we didn't have it. We couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And like, we didn't want to get takeout. So like I cooked and I like printed out a menu.
Put, like string lights up,
Yeah.
like candles to make it.
And we were like
a vibe.
23 at this, or 25.
Still
Four.
pretending.
Yeah.
Still
So we're
playing.
27
Yeah.
now. So,
fun.
but no, that's awesome. I hope that our
That's a cute
future kids
story.
one day will cook for us like that when they're in second grade. But I hope that they get good grades. And
Just
not
know
in
a bad
trouble in school.
report card
I hope they're
coming.
not getting in trouble and
Yeah.
doing that. They're just doing it because they love to do it. But I was definitely like, what can I get out of this?
That's so cute.
So you kind of touched on your family life a little bit, and I know you have like a really awesome love story as well. And Marissa and I are coming up on our 1 year in 2 week or week and a half.
Oh,
Yeah,
sweet.
so 1 year
Congratulations.
anniversary.
Thank
So
you.
Young
we
love.
young love. We're happy. But I want to hear about your love story. I know that I don't really know how you guys met. I mean, there was some
Sure.
stuff on your bio, but I want to hear it from you. And
Yeah. So this August we'll be married 16 years.
Wow. Amazing.
But it didn't start that way. Like I remember when I first started talking about this, I think it was the year after we opened Balkan, and I felt comfortable like having the conversation about like how it all happened. But yeah, I'll start from the beginning. So Edo was working for Taft Street restaurant, which was just sold, so it's really sad. But a friend of ours owned a Bosnian restaurant down in Little Bosnia, which is like the Bevo area. And I was working for Cisco Food Service at the time. I had 2 small kids, and at the time I had to make a transition from kitchens to something else just because of the age that they were at. Like I could no longer do like crazy late
Those
nights.
hours.
Yeah. So transitioned to doing food sales, which I was also terrible at. And that territory was mine. So I had Little Bosnia, The Hill, I had South Grand, and that was like my territory. So I had all these like multicultural like accounts. And I remember like the day that I walked in there, it's like this dark, it's a great place, but dark in there, like all the windows are pulled, like there's just like old men smoking cigarettes, like drinking coffee in the middle of the day. It seems very surreal. And open the door, and like this sounds very dramatic, but this is actually how it went down. But like open the door, like the beam of sunshine is like coming in, it like hits Edo's face, and he's very unique looking, like just really striking. And in that moment, it was like I just felt something, and I didn't know what it was, and I was like, this is weird. Like, I don't know
The
what
light
this
was
is.
just beep.
Yeah, but there was a moment, and I think later on we talked about that, and he had felt the same thing. So it was like this weird, like, electric pull towards one another. But again, we had like just met that day. I didn't think anything of it. Like, I'm a busy working mom. Like, didn't have time for a lot. And so we went along in our relationship, and I was there every Tuesday. He would make me coffee. He was very quiet, stoic, actually kind of cold, really, but interesting. And so, I'm, like I said, I got in trouble for talking. I'm a talker. I got out of him what I could to get to know him a little bit better. His boss was super cool, ended up being a pretty good friend. And part of sales is like relationship developing, right? So one of their bartenders at the time, this is like a year and a half in probably, one of the bartenders that was working there was going back to Bosnia for like a month, and they needed help on Tuesday nights. Well, I've done every single position in the restaurant business that you can imagine. So I was like, I can work Tuesday nights. I can bartend. So I was doing that, and Edo came in, and at this point we're friends, and he comes in and he has this like piece of paper, and no one else is in there. Everybody else is on the patio. And he's like, I'm getting deported. And I have no idea. I've never met anybody that would even, that you would think could be deported or in that situation. And it like got to me, and I didn't understand because I was there all the time, and he was such a hard worker and such a good person. And you could tell like family just meant so much to him. At the time, his mom, dad, and brother were still in Bosnia, and he was here with his aunt and uncle trying to figure out like how to stay and how to get them over here, because they got separated after the war from them. So they went back to Bosnia, and his aunt and uncle came to the United States after Germany. So I was asking a ton of questions, and I was really upset and pissed off at the government, and I didn't understand how any of it worked.
Yep.
And I got choked up because I'm very, very, I'm the person that will like go to like any sort of concert, any sort of like music venue, any performance art, like even like really great dinners where people are putting on like a special dinner. I will get emotional. Like I just get very
An appreciation.
Yeah, I get really connected to someone's art form. I don't know why. I've been like this since I was a little kid. So I was getting choked up and emotional about this, and he was taken back by my emotion. And so we were texting and like that night, and he was like, don't be surprised if I ask you to marry me. And I was like, ha, ha, ha.
You're like, ha.
You're hilarious. I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, wait a minute. Like I have like half custody with my ex, and like maybe we can figure it out. And I was like, well, don't be surprised if I say yes, because I am a very rebellious person and stubborn. And so I thought, hey, like if this could help him and his family and it will better his life, like, and I was able to help, like maybe that this would be worth it, like something cool. So we discussed it, and then we did it. And
how soon after that did you?
It was pretty quick. It was like months or less.
Wow.
And during the process of like doing everything that we needed to do, like I went from thinking, this is just going to be this short period of time. We have to do this. And, not thinking about the fact that we're going to stay married and like be an item,
Be an item.
And that was not in my head. But I told you earlier, like he was very stoic and almost kind of cold and very closed off. Well, through the process of doing all of this, like all of that just like melted away, and like he just became someone else, like someone, I don't know, like he was sent here for me.
Yeah.
So you would say you like fell in love with him during that process?
Yeah, and we
before
both
like
did.
you kind of like said, I want to help you, but then you're like, wow, I'm actually like falling in love with you
Yeah.
during this 2 or 3 month period of you getting
Yeah.
married.
It was real quick that we realized like we're not going to be like dating other people and like we're going to make this work.
Yeah.
And he's the best person I know and still is the best person I know. But I feel like I deserved him.
Yeah, that's right.
He's, really great to my kids. They, introduce him as dad. He is, I mean, anybody that knows Edo knows that he's just a really special person. But yeah, so, and then 16 years later, here we are.
Years of love.
Yeah, he ended up meeting the kids, asking them for permission to marry me. Like, could he ask me to marry? And then we got married a year. So we got married in the courthouse for the green card. And then a year later, we were actually married on the same date a year later.
Aw.
Okay. And you had a reception and
We just went
Small.
away to New Orleans.
oh,
Best
Small.
place.
It's just us
The
and the
best
kids.
Love,
and my
love
dad. and-
Nola.
Yeah.
that's very special. And
It is.
I love the story, and you should like feel something of yourself of like what made you do that, like these things in the world that make you make these decisions. And like you working at Cisco, you wouldn't be working there if it wasn't for your kids forcing, not your kids forcing you, but like
Yeah.
all these decisions that people make. And like we think of that sometimes. Like, do you think like we went to the same high school but we didn't really start dating until way after, but we saw each other, like why were we at that same place that same night? Like
Yeah.
it's crazy when you really think of it. And then boom, 7 years later, 16 years later. Wow, that's very interesting and very special. I'm glad that you shared that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep. It's a crazy story, and a lot of people were not about it.
I was about to ask. I didn't want to ask, but I was like, can you like share what like your family might have said about
I mean,
that?
it
They were like,
wasn't-
wait, are you serious?
Yeah, it was a lot of that. Like people thought I was crazy. There was also the fact that he is a Muslim, and at the time, like that was a very hot topic.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
people know me and they know that I'm independent and strong, and they thought that I couldn't be the strong, independent woman being married to just
Uh-huh.
the ignorance of not knowing.
Sure.
And so there was a lot of concern about that. There was a lot of concern that, he was just using me to get what he needed, and, all the
the
normal things.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We just believed in one another somehow, some way. I can't explain it. Like, I really can't.
It was a feeling for you. That's all you need.
Yeah.
It's your life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely, of course, backlash for sure.
Even
A lot of it.
always. Yeah. Like,
Well, 16 later.
but at least you were a
16 years later now.
rebellious girl, and you were like, I'm gonna stick it to him.
I did. That's actually what I thought. I was like, I'm going to stick it to the man and I'm going to do this. Like,
Right.
it's going to be my way of like protesting or having like, I don't know, just wanting to do something that I felt was right, even though it's not considered legal.
Yeah. The norm or whatever.
Or the norm, yes.
So what's it like working together?
Well, like I said, he's a really special person. He makes it really easy to work with him.
Yeah.
So we obviously work together, live together. He's a really hard worker. He's very loyal, very committed, and really believes in what we've built. And it's nice for him too, because he works with his brother and his dad now, and they lost a lot of years together. I mean, for me as an outsider, I can't speak for him and how he feels about that. But as an outsider looking in, I think that's pretty special too. Like, not that you can ever make up for lost years, but
You could take advantage of the years you have left and stuff. So
yeah, it's not like, all, candy and roses all the time, but
Right.
it's definitely something that we're all working towards together.
So how soon was it after you guys started like really, I mean, you were serious really quick, but how soon after like you got married was it like the food came into play where you were like, I really want to, bring this into?
I started doing that actually before that.
Okay.
So I would cook all the time. And I would, bring things and like make stuff for him. just because it seemed like the nice thing to do.
And you said earlier, like when we were talking just like off the mic of like just again wanting him to feel at home and like doing these things. So that's kind of where you started picking up your practice and skill of cooking the food.
Yeah. I actually, when I met his aunt, she was making this dish called pita. It's called borek around the world. There's like, it's all over the place, like in the Balkans and the Middle East and like Southeast Asia, like this version of this dish. And she was making this dough called yufka. It's similar to like a phyllo dough, but it's not as dry. It's definitely like more supple and just, it's beautiful. And I was watching her make this and I definitely fell in love. It was just like, whoa, like this wave of dough, like as you're like picking up the dough and it pulls out, you can see like you could read this paper between like underneath it.
Yeah.
And just like the most beautiful process I'd ever seen. And yeah, so I fell in love with that pretty quickly. And then I made it my mission to figure it all out.
Amazing.
So, you've been in food for so long, like, you've worked at bakeries and different restaurants and did you ever work any other jobs besides the food sales? Like, it's pretty much just been like restaurants
Well, I owned a belly dance company. I've been a dancer, performer my whole life. My dad was an actor, so I got into it pretty early. But I was in dance. My mom danced as well. But we had a co-op belly dance company. We performed at restaurants all over St. Louis and events all over St. Louis.
We went to Momo's one time.
I danced there.
And
Could've
saw
probably
belly
saw you.
dancers at Momo's. That's
that
why we went there.
Yeah.
And for the octopus too, and a couple other
Well,
things.
not for the octopus.
Oh yeah, but like we wanted the belly dancing. For
yeah.
We were like, oh, they have
And I'm like,
octopus.
yeah, the
Let's hit up
octopus.
Momo's.
That's a
But-
Greek spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Thanks.
cool.
What else have I done? I know I've had other jobs. Oh, for like a short period of time, I worked for an HVAC company. Like
Really?
actually like trying to learn how to install them.
Hilarious.
So I was like an
love it.
apprentice. So I was
Yeah.
like ripping out like condensing units and
Like, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah, no.
Go back to what I love to do.
So was like
Exactly.
entrepreneurship always a thing for you or not?
Yes.
It was.
So,
yeah.
yes, like very much so from a early age. My dad owned his plumbing company,
Okay.
Python Plumbing in St. Louis.
Mhm.
And there was some freedoms that I found that he had that other kids' parents didn't have. But there was also a work ethic that I found, within like coming up in a family where somebody owns their own business.
You have
you
to
know-
give it your all.
Yeah. Yeah. So it always felt like it meant something. It wasn't just a job. Like there was morals attached to it and, obligations and responsibilities and people, and I remember him telling me like he would take me to work and we would be in people's homes and we would discuss that before we would go in and what that meant. And of course, I always end up like talking about food with the homeowners as a little kid. And next thing I know, I'm like sitting there having lunch and he's like in the bathroom doing plumbing.
And he's like, oh my gosh.
But yeah, that was he. And the fact that, not only did he own his own business, but he still managed to find time for his, love of theater and performance art. So I don't know that he would have been able to do both if he was working for someone else.
Yeah.
And then I knew that I wanted to do something myself in food. I mean, something myself in food and anything my whole life. It's hard working for other people for me. And it was difficult doing what I needed to do when I was a kid. And then as an adult, I don't know that I really got to see what I was capable of because I was raising two kids and that comes with a lot of complications in terms of like meeting the expectations of your employer. So, I definitely would have been somebody that people would have been like, yeah, don't hire her.
You wouldn't put down references.
Yeah.
You'd be
Yeah,
like,
a lot going on.
you're like,
Because
I don't want to put these references
one of them's
down.
going to get sick, and then the other, and then she's going to get sick, and then she'll be out
It's
for
just how it goes, though. And
Yeah.
like, that's the reality of being a
And I
parent
think
and a mother.
with entrepreneurship, and even in the 4 years that I've been a full-time business owner, is like I did have that time freedom at first, but now I feel like I do have it, but I also don't. Like,
Yeah.
I am working so much on the weekends, Sunday, late night, Friday.
That's a lot more sacrifice.
But like I can, if I need to take care of something, I
Yes.
can.
No.
It's just I'm working, like, and I know you are the same
Yeah.
way with all your obligations.
I agree. It's just like there is some ownership over our time in that it's a choice.
Mhm.
So, for example, we, as of right now, where we're at with Balkan and everything else that we do, it's like we shut down twice a year because we can, and it's important to us to kind of reset. It's every 6 months. You get a break. Everybody gets off work and gets a little reset. So, and that feels good because like we own that time, and I don't know that I ever really had that before. Even though, yes, I am working, I don't know, like I kind of always worked really hard. And in this industry, you work really hard. So I'm definitely doing other things, and there's more worry than work. I would say work is still work and the kind of work that I expect.
Mm-hmm.
But the worry and the thoughts of like, how many people are working for you and they're supporting their family on that work, and just making sure people around you are taking care of themselves and their well-being and is important to me. It doesn't always work out. You can't connect with everybody on that kind of level, but it's definitely something that keeps me up at night.
Yeah, there's a certain type of like pressure and privilege that comes with like having those staff members and being able to take care of them. And then like you're working, like you don't care if you make money, like you just need to make sure that payroll is like done.
Yeah.
Like it comes to that some months where it's like, you're working twice as much. And then not only that, but you're starting other businesses and your overhead's going up and up. You're like, yeah, I know.
Yep. It's
but it's fun. It's like a game to me at least. And I'm sure you could say like it's not even like I don't know if you what kind of
Challenge.
goals you set, but like it's like goals, but it's also like you're never satisfied. You're like, okay, well this is cool. This is like you could just have Balkan and just be crushing it every day, all day. But you're like, let me do this. Let me open up more spaces for the community. Let me accept this soccer stadium gig and work ourselves crazy. You were probably there till what, 3 a.m. on last Saturday?
They were there. I actually wasn't there, so I was under the weather. With the weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were there pretty late, but it was, it's a new thing. And so we're trying to figure it out, and, we're making mistakes and learning from them. And the weather was the first time we've dealt with this in the stadium.
Yeah.
And I think everybody was kind of trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And, we have this stadium full of people at that point, and then, the gates close, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is just it. But no, there's like 10,000 people waiting outside to come in at 9:00 at night, and we missed it. It's like we missed the mark. We end up like selling out of food because you just don't know. And as a cook, it's like the thing that I'm battling against is not throwing food away, So
Right.
you don't want to I do not want to be in a position where I'm looking at trays and trays of food and think like, oh my God. like,
Wasteful.
yes.
Yeah,
I have
that's
a real-
worse than running out.
Yes.
Yep.
It is worse than running out to me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to know how you got started. So like we need to like kind of go back to, I guess, just how Balkan came about, and like you started off with the food truck and now you have your own brick and mortar. So kind of like talk us through that transition.
So, I said earlier, I always knew that I would do something. I was kind of waiting for the right time in our lives, and also for the kids. I think if I could go back, I probably would have done it sooner, but I don't know if I was ready. It's like you say that, but I don't know. But I thought like, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this with 2 small kids. But I watch my colleagues do it all the time. It's like, well, maybe I could have.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we knew it was time to like at least start talking about it. And at the time, food trucks were, hot, and they were coming up, and Soul Taco and Gorilla Street Food just like laid it down. They laid down the path for all of us to come up after them, and a really good one. And not only that, but they were super helpful. I'll never forget that. But we realized like the overhead and the amount of money that we could spend, we could open a food truck before, an actual brick and mortar. And we had decided that it was going to be Balkan food, just because we wanted to do it in a different way and from a different perspective. And in order to do that, and I remember we were sitting at CJ Muggs in Webster Groves, and Edo and I were talking about it. And he's like, well, you've only made everything that you've made from either like teaching yourself or working with my aunt or, her friend or someone's grandma. But you don't really know because you've never been there. Mm-hmm. And I had never left the country. I was a teen mom, and I just didn't go anywhere. Yeah. And we didn't really do a lot of vacationing growing up because we were such a huge family. Mm-hmm. We just didn't have that kind of life. And yeah, so I'm sitting across from him, looking at him like he has 7 heads, like, how, and the kids were older. So he stayed back with the kids, and I went to the Balkans for the first time alone. That's when I met his parents for the first time. We had been married 5 years at this point.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a daunting thought. How am I going to pull this off? Like, how I had his brother there who spoke English. So he was able to facilitate a lot of spots for me to kind of go and cook and study. And at that time, I did have a cell phone and a camera, but nothing was like it is now.
No.
Like, I wish I could go back in time and document all of the things that I did there, because
it'd be great content.
It would be so amazing.
Yeah.
And we took some pictures and some video, but they're terrible quality. And it was so crazy.
iPhone like 3 or 4 or whatever.
Yeah,
like
probably not even.
Flip phone.
BlackBerry.
No,
When was that? You've been married 16 years. That was 11 years ago.
It was 2013.
Oh, okay. So they were starting to do that.
iPhones were just coming out. So, and the quality was terrible.
Yeah, it was not great. But yeah, so I went over there. Well, let me back up. So at the time, I'm working for Pappy's Smokehouse. So I started at Pappy's Smokehouse in 2008. I was there for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And I pitched this to them like, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'd like to do. They also know me. I've known Mike Emerson and Nikki Puto for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. So they know I wasn't in a position just to be like, I can't work and I need to go do this. But they had opened a barbecue restaurant in Germany called Boogie's Barbecue. And
wow.
So they kept me on payroll, kept my insurance, let me go to Europe to do what I needed to do. And then I went to Germany to help with the barbecue restaurant. So that was kind of like the trade-off.
You had to help a little bit with them.
Which was great. I had so much fun there.
That really worked out for you. Wow.
It was so great. It was the only reason I was able to do that. If they would not have said yes or agreed or been willing to help me, I would not have gone. We didn't have any money to do that. And our household relied on both of our incomes. So I'll forever be grateful for that. And I just also feel like St. Louis restaurants, like we really try, we really try to help one another and be there for one another. And I think they believed in me. And that is in and of itself amazing because they didn't have to.
They could have been like, bye, see ya. Yeah. We'll be here when you come back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how long did you spend out there?
It was, the first time was 2013. So it was a couple months. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was the longest I'd ever been away from the kids. And that was tough. But I just knew that it was all going to be worth it somehow, some way, someday. Mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't look back on that time and be like, man, this was a really bad idea. But yeah, so went over there and met his parents, stayed there. We did the Germany thing, and then just traveled all throughout that region, like learning as much as I could and eating and cooking with as many people as possible professionally and just in a very like an environment, like a home cook. I did a lot of like buying groceries for families and like being like, can I come home with you? And they said yes.
But you wanted to see like what they got at the
Yeah.
grocery. You wanted to see like what you would have to bring to St. Louis.
Yeah. And what I found from a cook's perspective is as I'm traveling through these regions, there's like this connection, things aren't so different between country to country in this area, food wise. I mean, and so that got me really thinking about how to come at the menu and how to come at an end result would have been a restaurant because we knew we would, if the food truck worked out, we would open a restaurant. So, having Balkan Treat Box, Edo is Bosnian, but the food range throughout the Balkans is very similar. So you have like the Ottoman Empire that reigned over that area for so long. So a lot of like Turkish influence, and then the Austrian too. So then you have this, more of the Eastern European side. And once I realized like where it all came from and how they were connected, I think that's when like Balkan Treat Box was born, because it just couldn't be
Just
one thing.
Bosnia or just
Yeah.
right.
And it could have been, but I just felt like it would have been more closed off when you're thinking about it from like
It opens you up to more opportunities
Yeah.
to change. Like if you
Yes.
would have just stuck with, and there's a lot of restaurants in town that are strictly like this Italian restaurant. Like
Yeah.
it closes you off to all these different things.
And it speaks true to like your experience when you traveled and like how
Balkans.
much how it crossed over.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of makes us unique in what we do and what we did back then. I think now is super cool. We're seeing it more and more and more. Like it's great, like not just in the country, like worldwide, like how much the cuisine is like catching on and how it's being done. And that's been a fun journey and something fun to watch. But yeah, like making sure that, it's inclusive and having your, opening it, like you said, opening up your mind to just being like, okay, what could this be? And what does this look like? And how does it translate from my experience over there to like a place in St. Louis?
Yeah. Right.
And the restaurants here, I eat at a lot of the Bosnian restaurants here, and I love them all. They're all for different reasons, but I do love them all.
Yeah.
And what I took from there and here is like part of the reason why Balkan is the way it is because when I went there, I saw color and life and art and passion and music and all of these things that like I didn't experience from the culture just going to the places here in St. Louis. And, I remember we're driving through Bosnia to go up into Croatia, I think. I'd have to ask Amir. I don't remember.
It's a lot. It's a
But
blur.
I remember looking over and seeing this body of water that I thought had to be the sea, the ocean, because it was turquoise, like turquoise. He's like, oh, that's a river. It's not. It's definitely not a river. Yes, it's a river. So everything has meaning at Balkan. Like the turquoise is from all the waters and everything that, the color that I saw there, and the cherry blossoms or the red, like the cherry blossom trees. And then the yellow to me like would represent like the metals, the brass, the copper, like everything. Like it was just so vibrant and full of life.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it.
And I just wanted to translate that. So when people come to Balkan Treat Box, like they're getting blasted with music that they've never heard. There's color. There's like a little piece of like what I felt while I was over there. And that's what I hope to achieve every day. And when I talk to the staff about, what that looks like and how to kind of evoke it, as well as just like, we're having a party. This is our house. Like, and please treat everybody like their guests,
At your
and
home.
yeah. And encourage them to have fun. You will catch us like clapping, head bopping, dancing in the middle of like a crazy rush, just because that's what Balkan means to me.
I love it.
So I want to know. So that's what Balkan means, but the treat box side of it. So
yeah. So a lot of things come to me in dreams.
Yes.
really in dreams?
Yes.
And you remember them? Or do you have to write them down when you wake up?
I am a professional dreamer. I can go to sleep, have a dream, wake up, go to the bathroom, come back, and go back into my dream.
I love when that happens.
Yeah.
That's the best.
I feel like
it's rare that
technically lucid
happens.
dreaming?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but I can like get back
You're like,
into
I can't
a
wait to
dream.
get back into this dream.
I'm like,
and you fall right back
no,
to
I don't
sleep.
want to get up. I'm like, wait a minute, I can get back in. And I just started practicing.
Just pick right up.
The worst
I've
is
done that
that-
a couple times.
See? It's
a couple,
amazing.
and it's the best.
But you know what's the worst is
And
when
it's a bad dream?
when you can do it and it's
Oh.
a bad dream and you don't want to and it happens.
That happened to me last night. I had a really bad dream, and then I woke up at 3 a.m. and tried to go back to sleep, and I did a little, and like it continued. I'm like, I'm done. I have to get out of this crazy world.
I will wake up instead of going back to sleep if it's that bad. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a little bit about me. That is like I have ideas and things come to me in dreams.
That's so crazy.
A little bit of a witchy woman.
Yeah.
Hey, we need that.
I'm here for it. I like it.
But so had a dream. Obviously, we went back. We talked about how I was a dancer. And one of the bands that I love, and I always dance to, always put in my set list if I was dancing for like non-cultural people, like Americans, like momos or, at a party, was Balkan Beatbox. So in a dream, I woke up and I was like, you guys, we were sleeping on the couch and Edo was sitting there like, I don't know, having coffee. I was like, I think I got it. I was like, what do you think about Balkan Treat Box? And we're like, that's it.
It just clicked.
So it was named after a band, and you hear the music in the restaurant all the time. It probably drives the employees crazy because it's like
On
always
repeat.
on.
Yeah, like every 30 minutes on the minute.
Well, it's just a mix, and now it's become like part of my OCD where it's like, this is the song that comes on at this time of day, and this is the song that comes on at this time of day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where the name came from.
That's awesome.
Cool.
So I didn't know. I
And-
was like, is it a treat? Is it a box? I was
No,
like, no.
I know.
And it was like every time Edo and I would go anywhere, like out to eat or like go somewhere, he'd be like, what a treat. This is such a treat. And he would say it all the time. And then he told me that it was like not common to eat out, as a child or like growing up. And when they did, it was always like,
treat.
this is a treat. It
Yeah.
translated to treat.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we were in a box truck. It all made sense.
Yeah.
It's a treat. Yeah.
And that's
you know,
how I
box
took
truck.
it. I was like, it's a treat. Like you go to Balkan, you're getting treats. Like it's
Yes.
quality.
Yeah, but trust me, we answer the question all the time, which is like, no, it's not a dessert truck.
No.
How quick did you guys blow up? Because like when we moved to South City, it was probably 2018.
Yeah. 18,
And like
18.
you were at Food Truck Friday a couple times, and then you would be at somewhere else, and it was like, really hard. Like it was always a big line. So like, was that right off the bat, or was that?
No.
No.
Slow.
No, it was really tough. And we couldn't find the secret formula to try to get people to even like taste the food. The words are long and they're intimidating. And one of the things that I really set out to do was, and I don't know if I would have done this if it was a different city, but the fact that we have like the highest population of people from the Balkans here is like a big deal. So in my head, it's like, how part of this is education. So I didn't want to like change the names of the menu items. I didn't want to call cevapi sausages, beef sausages. I didn't want to call pjeskovica a burger. So everything I wanted it to have its original name. I numbered the menu for obvious reasons, but just to get people comfortable with it.
I'll take a number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to feel like they're learning something too.
Right.
So we didn't change any of the words. So we tried everything. We had like a menu with words, a menu with pictures. None of that worked. Like nothing was working. We couldn't. I mean, you'd walk past the truck and it smells so good. Like that. We baked bread fresh on the truck
Wow.
at the location. We're baking like the pide, which is like, meat and bread and cheese, and it's super tasty. It smells really good out of a wood burning oven. And then we had a charcoal grill. So like meats are like grilling on the grill.
Just sounds
the
amazing.
smell was, I would get out of the truck sometimes and like walk and be like, wow, this is like intoxicating.
Yeah.
People are going to come. Because I remember being at Pappy's and we weren't open and the smokers were going and people were just, they didn't know we
get
were
drawn
there,
in.
but they kept walking up and being like, what is this?
Mhm.
Like, it smells so good.
Yeah.
So I thought eventually this will work, but it didn't.
Mhm.
So we tried everything that we could think of in terms of menu to get people to taste it. And we ended up giving things out. And then we realized like we were moving around. We were going between like Wells Fargo and City Garden and like one other place. And we realized like we just need to stay put. We're just going to try one spot, stay here, try to get to know the people that work. So we were at Wells Fargo.
Yep.
We sat out there. We came every day. We handed out food to people for free, gave them bites of things. And like little by little, like people would start coming. And then we'd be sitting there and, you know, we'd make like $40 one day. Then it was like we'd make 85 and then it was like 125. And then we were like, I remember the day we made $300. Like we were all almost in tears.
Like, cha-ching!
Yes. But the best part was like all the things in my head that were like ideas of how this was going to work out were like happening before my eyes. Like people come down, they would order the food, they'd eat the food. Then the next day they'd bring 3 people down. And then it's not us like talking to them about the menu. These people are explaining the menu to their friends. And it just kept growing
Like
and
wildfire. It
growing
was just like
and growing and growing. And so once that spot became a spot that we could rely on, we're like, okay, let's try City Garden. So we did the same thing at City Garden and just started growing our customer base, and people really started to trust us.
Yeah, recognize the name and
Yeah. And they trusted us. They knew that they were going to get a great meal at a good price, and they were watching us like work hard. You know, we were always the first trucks to arrive because we were baking the bread. So we'd pull up and people are getting out of their cars to go to work, and we're like
We're here.
making somoon in the truck, and they're smelling and they're like, man, it smells good. We're like, come back, you know? So you get to know these people, and St. Louis is a small town. You know, it's a small town. People talk. Friends are telling friends are telling friends are telling friends. And next thing we know, we're like doing events where there's lines and we're selling out of food. And it was great.
Was there a moment when you
That
thought you
is
were
so
gonna
cool.
when you were gonna have to like shut it down? You're like, was there ever that moment or no? COVID. Okay.
You mean like shut it down?
Well, like just the truck in
Oh,
general, like
'cause it
the
was too
process,
busy?
because you said like it was really slow, and you're like, man, this isn't
Oh,
gonna work.
yes,
Like, was it nightly?
definitely.
You were like, we're like.
Oh
we're-
yeah, no, definitely.
And
So-
did Edo quit his job too to work with you?
yeah, but not until later.
Okay.
So at the time,
because that would have been really bad then.
Yeah.
You'd been like, oh wow, this is bad.
Yeah. No, at the time he didn't quit his job until we had established a clientele.
Mhm. He's smart.
where it's not
Yeah.
a risk it's not a
Smart.
risk.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Yeah.
safe bet, we're doing good.
And the food truck industry is interesting because winters are hard. You know, it's St. Louis, winters are hard.
Yeah.
And it wasn't sustainable for us. And we knew that we started at, you know, we did, I guess our first service was in 2016 at the International Institute for their Christmas festival. So we did 2 in 2016 and then had to shut down the truck because it was super cold. And then we brought it back out in 2017, spring of 2017. And that's when I went full time with the truck. And at the time, Edo was working and Kui was working on Nudo. And he and Marianne had just moved down from Chicago, and they were working on the same thing. And we had finally got the truck out. So they helped us. Like Marianne was on that truck with us all the time. I don't know what I would have done without her. Like there's no way. We had nobody to work. Like, there was nobody to help. And what I realized really quickly is I set it up with people that had to have skills. Like I couldn't just hire anybody. Like Marianne is a trained, very, you know, talented chef. And so
Right.
I
You
was
can't
able-
just like train somebody on that
you
setup.
can,
but-
but it's difficult.
You have
It would
the
almost take you
time.
more time to train somebody than it would be for you to just do everything yourself.
Yeah. So she came with a world of knowledge and really helped us kind of figure some things out from the beginning. But yeah, and then, you know, eventually we had to hire somebody. You know, she obviously went and opened Nudo, and
Just
I'm
amazing.
sure you guys are out here eating that all the time.
Every time we leave the
we
podcast,
we go there.
Yeah,
we're
we go there.
getting
That's where I
Nudo.
go to. As I'm driving, I'm like,
Every time.
oh, Nudo today.
Yeah, every time.
So, we had to hire somebody. We had our first hire. And then at that point, it was like, okay. I know at the time I was working at Vicia. I was like, it's time to put in your notice. Like, we got to do this.
It's time.
That's when you were like, we're crushing it. Like, we got this steady base and we're like, we can afford it.
Yeah. And then, winter came again. And we realized really quick, like, okay, we need to at least start looking to see what we can do.
For on-site location.
Yeah.
Because you're like, we can't go through another winter like
It
this
was,
without.
I mean, we did, but so 2017, we opened in 2019, but we signed that lease in 2018. It just took a while to get open.
to build out.
Yeah.
Well, you're well known. You won 2022 Locals Choice Awards for Best Food
For
Truck.
STL Bucket List.
For STL Bucket List.
But just recently,
Well,
James Beard Finalist. Like, we haven't even we just love this conversation because we haven't even talked about all this cool shit that you're doing lately. And but like that, and like every single magazine, like just they like you're like hot right now.
Is
Like,
your
not that you
inner
weren't always
child just like,
Yeah.
like, I know you're very humble, but you're
Aw.
hot right now, and like everybody, like what just came out, the 100. You're on the cover of that. Like, it's
you're
crazy.
doing it, girl?
Yeah.
And just
It's-
cooking stuff that
good
you
for
love
you.
cooking.
But yeah, my inner child is very,
Good. That's
she's
right.
very prevalent.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's been wild. I think I have to think that a lot of that is also, having this new perspective from this cuisine. And I say new because it's not better. It's just different. It's everybody they're cooking for different reasons. And Balkan Treat Box happens to be mine, and that I think what's great about it is it resonated with people, and St. Louis was really on our side, and the connections that I made in my life and in my career, like what the best part about this and the best part about doing this was realizing how many people would actually help me. And that meant a lot.
I love that every guest we have on talks about just St. Louis and the support that we bring to restaurants and people who are doing something different, something new. Like there is such a stand behind of like, we got you. And even if it's gradual, it happens. And then like once there's like recognition, it's like we are support local, like die hard.
Yeah. I like that too.
Yeah, it's nice. But like, was there an aha moment when getting all this press, or did that happen before? Like, what was like the one aha moment in your career where you're like, wow, like we're freaking doing this right now? Do you have a specific one? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot. I'm sure you have those every month where it keeps getting.
I mean, I think it was the restaurant. Like, I mean, there's a lot of them. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's the restaurant when, we opened and, trying to figure out what that looked like. And when, I mean, believe it or not, when we sat down and we did our pro forma for the restaurant, our business plan, we were set out to do lunch and dinner. Like we wanted to be open till 8:00. And I remember like on my little business plan, it was like, I just need to sell food to 125 people and then we'll be okay. And I built everything around that, maybe to be like, okay, if we feed, 175, 200 people, like what does that look like? But everything was built around that. So when everything changed and it wasn't like that, you have to figure out what that looks like and what's sustainable. I mean, a lot of people don't know we're essentially a bakery. We get in very early to bake bread. It used to be like between 3 and 4 in the morning. We've figured out a lot between opening and now, so we can get away with being there a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Like every Saturday is an aha moment. I think when whether I'm on Expo, I'm standing at the oven working, whatever it is, I still like when people are still coming and there's butts in the seats and I'm sweating my ass off in a with an oven that's running at 800 degrees. I will still get emotional and choked up about the fact that people are still coming.
You're humble and grateful.
Very grateful.
Yeah.
We were talking to a chef on here, and I forgot it. It might not even be a chef. I think it was Tim Wiggins who owns Yellow Belly, but he's like,
I love them.
yeah, he's amazing, and he's our favorite bartender. He makes the best drinks. But shout out Tim. But he's like every Saturday night, he thinks this is the night that nobody's going to show up. You have that little bit, you have that self-doubt and awareness of like, this is the night everybody cancels us.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you feel that too.
Yeah, it never goes away.
Because you guys don't do res, so you can never know.
No, you never know.
At least with the reservation, you're like, oh, we're booked out for a month. We're chilling. Like, you know, like some of these places in town, I'm like, dang, they're booked out for 2 months. Can't even get in there.
Yeah.
They can kind of forecast that, like what you're going to make. But
so how can people support you guys? Like, what's your location? Tell the address and then.
So we're Balkan Treat Box at 8103 Big Bend and Webster Groves. We're in the Old Orchard area. And we're open from Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 3.
There you go.
what's your favorite thing to make on the menu?
On the menu?
Yeah.
The menu is numbered in the order of my favorites, by the way.
Is it? Fun fact.
Holy
That's so
shit.
cool.
Yo, drop that clip. Don't let the city know that. They're only going to be ordering ones.
Yeah.
You're going to like 572 ones, please.
Do the Loryn favorite, please.
Yeah.
Number
so
one.
Chihuahua is my favorite. It's my favorite thing on the menu because it meant the most to get right. And it took the most time to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And once we figured it out, it was a revelation.
Amazing.
Okay.
I
Get
feel
your number
like-
ones, people.
I feel like this episode was like so deep in some parts and like we didn't really even get to talk about any of your new stuff going. So like if you could just tell us about you have the venue and you're doing the catering and stuff
so
like.
we still obviously book the truck.
Okay.
We do catering, outside catering and events. We have an event space in Webster Groves. Holds about 60 people or so. It's called the Ridge Room. It's adjacent to our new cafe that we're opening called Telva at the Ridge.
Yep.
And Telva means the coffee grounds at the bottom of a Bosnian coffee cup. You can read them; they can tell your fortune.
Oh, yeah.
I've
Have you had that done?
Of course,
Of course.
I've witnessed some of the desserts that you guys, is that over at Telva?
Yeah.
I've watched
so
those
we're
videos. When does that
doing
open?
I don't know.
You don't know. Soon.
Some pastries, some modern cafe food with our flavor
Coffee,
profiles.
yeah.
Yeah. Traditional Bosnian coffee, which is similar to Arabic coffee, Turkish coffee, Greek coffee. It's all kind of similar. Same thing like what I was talking about with like Balkan.
Yeah.
And a few few signature things as far as pastries go. And then a small menu. And then we'll rotate
That's
stuff
nice.
in and out.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And then the food catered like at your venue will be your Balkan
You can
Treat
bring
Box
out
food.
you can bring outside caterers.
okay.
Yeah. So we're not we realize it's a catering venue and we do our food isn't for all people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of times people want other things and we're happy to let them bring it in.
You guys have had some cool
Space and
events there
bring it
too.
in.
I think
Yeah.
you've had some like small markets
Yeah.
there. I think Brittany has been hosting events there
Yep,
for you guys
from
too.
disco. Yeah, we're trying to get it out there more and more and more. It's that's a new thing.
Yeah. It'll be a new thing, but you'll pop off. So Webster's your spot, huh? You love Webster?
We live in Webster.
Oh, okay.
So it's nice. And I also feel like we're still in this phase where whatever we're doing, like I really want to have my hands in it. And if I don't have to drive,
Super far.
yeah,
It's
like
easier.
it's easier. And I feel like, the whole saying of like, I wish I could be two places at once. I feel like in this case, I can be,
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like a 1 minute, 2 minute drive.
That is
from
nice.
the
And you're like, let me
restaurant.
just keep doing this.
Yeah, that
like,
makes sense.
Kind of like what Ben
Yeah.
does in Tower Grove South. It's
Yeah.
like all the stuff is just
I'm
right
not done
there.
with Webster. So
Yeah.
there's still
Just getting started.
more to come.
Yeah, that's super awesome. So we do have one last question. We'd
Yeah.
love to ask the STL bucket list question.
Okay.
I know I sent you a little text earlier, but I didn't know if you had time to think about it. But
Right.
What are
basically,
your spots?
the STL bucket list, we kind of think of it as like, what's your ideal spots? Like, what are your favorite spots to go eat? Maybe
man.
with the
It's
kids.
gonna be a long
Date
list.
You're gonna
night.
celebrate another opening or like a milestone
yeah.
or whatever.
So we could do like date nights,
Celebrations, Louis, and Olive and Oak.
Oh yeah.
Those are probably the
Great
two
spots.
places we
Mhm.
do celebratory things. Date night. Oh man, it's like the same.
The same.
Yeah, of course.
And we also go to O&O Pizza
Mhm.
and Brasserie, and let's see, where else do we go? Oleo. Obviously, like day to day, like stuff that we just eat a lot that we will like get on a regular basis. Nudo, Miley, chicken scratch, Biggies,
Great
Michaels, Didi Mao, mayo ketchup.
We were just talking about that place at work today.
Yeah, Stellar Hog, Adam's Smokehouse, Pappy Smokehouse, of course.
The OG.
Big foodie over here.
Yeah. I mean,
do you get a chance to eat out a lot or not really?
Yeah. I mean, yes, we do. We try to go and like
support your friends.
Yeah, and we try to do as much as we can and get out, and it's social for us too, because then we can see our friends. You know, one of the things about what we do is we don't really get to get out very often, so we're going to visit people and being like, hey.
Yeah.
They're like,
hospitality
they're in the
industry
kitchen.
ties you down. It does.
And they're like, oh my gosh, not today.
I know. And it's funny too, because we are a daytime restaurant, so we can still go out on Saturday night.
Everybody's probably jealous of you. They're like, you got it so easy.
Like, hey.
You're like, well, I'll call you next time I wake up at 3.
Yeah,
and you come pick
exactly.
me up.
We can't hang outside of work because we're on opposite schedules.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But yeah, everybody just go support Balkan Treat Box. Obviously, maybe go during the week. You said it's a lot easier to get in there and get what you want. But obviously the weekend's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I feel like we try to do is, like, even if you're waiting in line, by the time you sit down and get your food, it's still the normal amount of time you're spending in a restaurant. But yeah, during the week is obviously at every restaurant is easier. But it's a lot of I think it's more fun on Fridays and Saturdays, personally.
Yeah. Goes by
Come
faster.
listen to that good music.
Sunday brunch-in, you're going to be there first weekend or first Sunday of every month too. Is that Sunday brunch-in or is that?
Oh, yes.
At
At
Piper
food truck,
Palm House?
Piper Palm House.
Yeah.
It's such a fun event.
I love that.
I'm like, wait, you're still there, right? I was like, I knew you were there last year.
Yes,
but
it's such a fun event. We do that with
Four Hands and
Honeybee. Honeybee biscuits.
So good.
And it's so fun.
That's a good
We had them on here too.
breakfast,
Yeah, we had
good spot, good event to go and just enjoy the weather. Piper Palm House is so pretty, and then just get some good food.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in the show. Loryn, thank you for coming in, taking your time, coming after work. We appreciate you.
Yes.
Matt, shout out in the back, sitting back there producing the
Matt.
episode. Ones and twos. He's our DJ. Shout out Kevin and Four Hands over at the team over there for sponsoring the show. Obviously, we have all these beers sitting here.
I know.
So
Those are people.
yeah, shout out to that team. And then, of course, the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis, the largest public art foundation in St. Louis, funding the arts because we love public art and we love theater and all the great things that come with St. Louis. So
Industry.
we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
Today they rep St. Louis, yeah. They rep St. Louis. They rep St. Louis.